Today I am going to start chapter 25. The title of this chapter is Aggregate Demand and Supply Analysis. So in this particular chapter, we will be focusing on the concepts of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. As you know that in the previous chapters, we focused considerable attention on monetary policy. As you know that the monetary policy touches our everyday lives by affecting the goods prices we buy and the quantity of available jobs. So in this particular chapter, we are going to develop a basic tool which is known as the aggregate demand and aggregate supply analysis. And the aggregate demand and supply analysis will enable us to study the effects of money on aggregate output and prices. The question is, what do we mean by aggregate demand? Actually, it is the total quantity of an economy final goods and services demanded at different price levels. And the question is, what do we mean by aggregate supply? Because aggregate demand and aggregate supply are the two cornerstones of this particular chapter. Aggregate supply is actually the total quantity of final goods and services that firms in an economy want to sell at different prices. So the actual quantity of output and the price level are determined by equating aggregate demand and aggregate supply. It means that when the aggregate demand is equal to the aggregate supply, at that position we can determine the equilibrium price level and the equilibrium output level. So we can say that aggregate demand and aggregate supply analysis will enable us to explore how aggregate output and the price level are determined in an economy. Let me start the chapter from the introduction of aggregate demand. Actually, aggregate demand is the first building block of aggregate supply and aggregate demand analysis. Actually, aggregate demand curve describes the relationship between the quantity of aggregate output demanded and the price level when all other variables are held constant. It means that it only represents the relationship between aggregate output demanded and the price level. So we will show that if the price level in an economy increases or decreases, how it will affect the aggregate output demanded in that economy. So we can show this relationship with the help of aggregate demand curve. Now there are two views regarding the slope of the aggregate demand curve. The first view is known as the monetarist view of aggregate demand, and the second view is known as the Keynesian view of aggregate demand. Actually, you know that monetarist is actually the group of economists whose founder was Milton Friedman, and they thought that the aggregate demand curve is downward sloping with one primary factor that causes it to shape changes in the quantity of money. So simply, monetarists are actually a group of economists who believe that the aggregate demand curve is a downward sloping curve, and there is only one single factor, and that is known as changes in the quantity of money. So actually they are believing that if there is a change in the quantity of money in an economy, it will affect the aggregate demand curve. So monetarist was led by Milton Friedman. So he was the pioneer economist in monetary school of thought. On the other hand, Keynesians is the second school of thought. And by Keynesians, we mean the followers of John Maynard Keynes, the followers of J.M. Keynes. Keynesians also view that aggregate demand curve as downward sloping. They are also supporting the monetarist view, but they believe that changes in government spending and taxes or in consumer and business willingness to spend can also cause it to shift. Actually, monetarists and Keynesians both are of the view that the aggregate demand curve has a downward slope. But the only difference is that monetarists are of the view that changes in money supply are the only causes of downward slope. It means that if changes in the quantity of money occur, the aggregate demand curve will shift. But the Keynesians are of the view that changes in government spending and taxes. It means government spending is the first factor, government taxes is the second factor, and similarly, consumer willingness to spend is the third factor, and finally, business willing to spend is the fourth important factor. It means that these four factors are those factors causing the aggregate demand curve to shift. Monetarists and Keynesians both are of the view that the aggregate demand curve has a downward sloping curve, but monetarists are of the view that changes in the money supply is the primary factor which causes change in the aggregate demand curve. On the other hand, Keynesians are of the view that changes in government spending, changes in government taxes, similarly, consumer willingness to spend and business willingness to spend can also shift the aggregate demand curve.